no, but it does create a consciousness.
People from all different cultural backgrounds can meet.
I have to look at what are they bringing to the table. It's not just themselves. You know, anybody can sit around the table and listen and not contribute. But we want people from the community who care passionately about their borough and that would like to have something to say in order to help the police to develop in a way that the local community would like to see.
The world as it could be. Welcome to another edition of PECKHAM Podcast, the podcast where big ideas find local traction. Today it's about policing, it's about local policing, it's about the community and local policing and how the two, can you get those two to work together, police and community. Robert Peel, we'll get a quote about Robert Peel in a bit, but he talked about the police being the people being the police, which is obvious, but we lose sight of it. Encouraged by our mainstream media friends who like to sensationalise, particularly if it's a dark story. So, with me today I've got two very long-serving members of the Southwark community who've been at the centre of this relationship that we've sought since 1999-2000, when a certain project commenced, which was the introduction of bodies called the Independent Advisory Groups. Every borough in London has one, and in Southwark, which is where I am, we've got the current chair of Southwark IAG, Avril+John. Thanks for coming, Avril. And Avril's predecessor, John Webber.
Good afternoon.
Good day to you, John. How are you both? And thanks for coming. You've got stories, you've got knowledge, and one of the things that has fascinated me, and you know, once become increasingly aware of it in the years that I've been associated, as I myself have, with the IAG for the last 8 years, how do you forge relationships that are useful stroke beneficial with officers who come and go? Because the leadership, they don't stay in one place for terribly long. But let's go back to the beginning and tell us, both of you, how you got started. We'll start with the lady, because I'm old-fashioned. How did you get started with police and why?
I think it was in the 80s, 1980s, do you remember those days? 1980s, and I was introduced to my local home beat officer, as they were called in those days, who knocked on the door one day. I was living in Camberwell, and he introduced himself and said he would be interested in somebody in the street setting up a neighbourhood watch. So I thought about it, and I think I'd just become a new mother, and I thought, well, I'm at home, so it might be useful, might be a good idea. Get to know the neighbours. Why not? So that's where I started. The same said officer became a school beat officer, and he's retired now, of course, a long time ago. But he started my interest, I suppose, in policing.
So you said two things straight away.
Yeah.
Neighbourhood watch
Yes.
and schools.
Yes.
And when people think police,
Yes.
which they may not think very much, they see them on the news, or there's a bad story about a Wayne Couzens, horror show, but you don't think of these other things. So, was Neighbourhood Watch being brought in because there had been a sudden spate of burglary?
I think they thought they would like to encourage growth amongst the population, and I think in different pockets of Southwark they still exist. They were called the curtain twitchers back in the day, but there aren't very many except in the south. So in the, shall we say, the more affluent areas, they seem to still be there. I would say when I moved from Camberwell, I don't think there was a neighbourhood watch in that street or in that environment really. But did it have its purpose? Yes, it probably did. Did it bring people out who wanted to ask questions of the police, be in their company? I'm not so sure it was continuous. So,
do you think there was any benefit in relations?
Minimal, I would say. That's from my perspective, but I'm not suggesting it doesn't work. I think they have to renew it, refresh it, and bring it up to speed for today's customers, I think, really.
So the 80s for you, John. When did you get involved and why?
Well, I moved into Southwark in the early 90s, I live in a block of flats down in Surrey Docks, Surrey Quays area, and we were suffering break-ins into the garages from local kids, tailgating people coming in. People weren't waiting, gates to close. Kids tailgating in and then creating havoc in the garage. So I'd just gone on to the board of management for the building, and we were looking at ways to try and prevent the kids getting entry into the building. I went to see our local sergeant in the Surrey Docks area and asked what we could do. He came along, looked at the building, we started to talk, and then he said that they were trying to build a community group that could liaise with police and advise what was going on in the area, how things were moving with the community. Was I interested in joining? So I thought, well, I've got nothing else better to do with my time, yes. So I got involved at that very local level in Surrey Docks, and from there I was then I was involved in that for about 7 years, and then the Macpherson report came along into the Stephen Lawrence murder, which introduced the concept of independent advisory groups for the boroughs. I was not involved at that particular time, but one of the people who was on the local panel for what then developed into Safer Neighbourhood committees was a special down in Southwark Police Station, and she had been talking to the superintendent who was running the area, the neighbourhood superintendent, and she was saying that they were looking for new members for the independent advisory group. Could she recommend anybody? So she said, well, go and talk to this guy John Webber and see what he has to say. So they came along and asked me if I was interested, explained what it was all about, and it appealed to me enormously, because I was somewhat confused with the lack of engagement that there appeared to be between the police and the communities. We had in Surrey Docks, we had a super sergeant, Mark Dyer, wonderful man, ex-military, ramrod straight, 6'2" tall, put his helmet on, he was almost 7 inches tall, or 7 feet tall I should say, and he was like a Pied Piper, because he used to go through the streets and the kids would all follow him around. And wherever Mark went, you knew, because you heard this babble of children behind him. And he worked very hard on building community relations and getting harmony, I suppose. And in actual fact, all our problems went away, which was wonderful for us as a community, and not just the building that I was in, but in the whole of our area.
How did they go away?
Because there was engagement, there was involvement, there was interest. People were interested in what was going on around them and in what was creating what had been a problem and what did we need to do to get over that problem. And it was community engagement that did it. It was providing things for kids to do, which took away the problem.
And in effect, they learnt, did they, some respect for
yes.
other people's property?
Yes, it did.
I think they actually did. Because obviously we've got this terrible wave of shoplifting where there's no respect for property.
Yes, that it was interesting because they were saying some of the people who had been the villains years before have now grown up and married and had children, and they turned their lives around, become rational human beings, can I say? And now they were in a situation where their kids were starting to go off the straight and narrow. So what do we need to do to bring them back there? Youth clubs. Do you remember the Carrot Bus?
Oh, I do.
Yeah, I mean the Carrot Bus was incredible. The kids would be queuing up to get on there, to go and do whatever the activities were that were inside.
Carrot with a K, wasn't it?
Do you know? I couldn't say what it was.
But it was a police.
It was a police.
It was a police
yes.
initiative,
Yes.
and
Yes.
it was like not a playground, but it was a play space in some
Yes.
sense, wasn't
Inside,
it? A double-decker bus.
Yeah, that's right.
So, you've both done time with the IAG.
Yeah.
I'm glad you quantified that.
Yeah. 20 years plus, isn't it?
Well,
Am
not
I right?
5.
25 for you, Avril.
I'm about 15.
John, come on.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, about 15 years.
But so, let's think, what's been particular? Is there a constant frustration with this relationship for you?
What, between us?
I wasn't thinking that, but we can get to that.
Sorry, go on, carry on.
Let's stick with the thesis of the programme for a moment, and then we'll get into,
Right.
the soap opera. The relationship with the police, that the IAG members, we come from the streets, we're just almost randomly selected, sit round the table when we're free to attend. And does that lead to relationship? You've both been chair of the local group. Does it lead to a relationship?
I think your word random isn't a very useful word, because I think we come to the table simply because we all have something to carry to the table to discuss. So our advice to the police, whether they take it or not, is from different perspectives, from different parts of the boroughs, and we all have different backgrounds, different opinions, different interests. And I think, so we're not quite random. And when I ask people that I have met that are not part of it but think they could contribute really well, I have to look at what are they bringing to the table. It's not just themselves. Anybody can sit around the table and listen and not contribute. But we want people from the community who care passionately about their borough and that would like to have something to say in order to help the police to develop in a way that the local community would like to see. The diversity of the borough is of paramount importance to me, but unfortunately some communities would like to hide back and not come forward and not make their point.
That's right.
I think there's a resilient factor here, isn't there, in the fact that the diversity of Southwark is what makes it so interesting as a place to live. The problem that brings with it is that people bring their cultures with them when they come in, which is understandable. And with a lot of people, part of that culture is you don't trust the law, you don't trust the police. So it's trying to break down those barriers to get them to understand that the police in this country are nothing like the police in the vast majority of the rest of the world. I suppose I've been fortunate in as much as I've travelled most of the world during my life. And I've seen how police forces operate in different countries, what they do, the way that they enforce the law, and they are enforcement agencies. What we have here is a police service which works with its community, tries desperately hard to work with its community. To go back to your prompt for this, what frustrates me about the system is this big revolving door where we have a lot of junior officers on borough who've been here for years and know the place and understand the communities that they work with. But I question how much of a voice do they have going up the chain to tell their command what's going on, or that their command will listen to. You have a command who in borough who are always looking for the next step. Where are they going to be going to next? And we know when they come in, and I'm sure Avril shares this frustration with me, it's, that at the best we've got them for 3 years and probably only got them for 12 months or 18 months. And what can you do in that period? You're building a relationship, you're trying to get an ethos that will work. I have to say that latterly I think the attitude of officers coming in is better than it has been on some occasions, because they are more willing and more readily acceptance of what the IAGs can offer to them. But there's this, there has been this resistance to take us seriously. That resistance even expands into central and to senior management there. Resistance is maybe too strong a word to use, a reluctance to engage as perhaps we think they should be engaging, but bearing in mind we don't have the bigger picture. So, there are perhaps things that they could share with us, things that they could tell us that would make it easier for us to understand where they're coming from and what they need to do, but they're not sharing that to the extent they should. Nowadays, I think on borough there is more of a sharing attitude than there perhaps has been in the past.
I think the word trust has to come in here.
Trust, yes.
And it's trust both ways. It's for the public, from the police, and vice versa. And I think the trust has been building up because we've made concerted efforts to get into their world.
But does it lead anywhere, that trust?
Locally, yes.
What do you mean to improve relationships, you mean?
Relationship or service, or make an adjustment to practice?
I think
Is change achievable?
I think it encourages them to think outside the box, to look at how they interface with their local communities, because, you know, at training school, they will learn the law. They will learn how to deal with the community, and that's deal with them rather than engage with them. And so when they come out and they come to their boroughs or wherever they're going to land, and suddenly they realise the people there are not what they were taught. And they have to, some of them have got some very good ways about them, some interpersonal skills, others have to learn how. And so I think that's what we are doing, is to help them to identify in their own way, not by teaching them, but by saying to them, we are here for you, we would like this relationship, but also in return, you know, we want to be trusted, respected for what we do as well. It's not asking a lot, but until senior management understand that and the light bulb goes on, that's when we've got it. And right now we're going through a better time than we did, say, 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And back in the day, a long, long time ago, it was good. And then things over the years really plummeted. And I can't tell you when, I haven't got a timeline of it. But certainly now we've made a lot more effort, I would say, and I think John would agree, that we are getting back to a relationship that works both ways.
Yeah, I think certainly in Southwark there's an awful lot of effort that has gone in on the part of Avril and Stephen to forge a good, solid working relationship with the SLT, which is I think being beneficial. There's a considerable amount of work that has gone into engaging with the lower rank officers.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, those are the people that we really need to understand and talk to and get their psyche, because they're the ones who see what's happening on the street.
Yeah.
Whether they can relay that up the stream or not is debatable. That's where we can come in to some extent, because we can say things to management that they couldn't possibly say, and we get away with it because we're the advisors. And what we're telling you is you want to know how we see it and how we interpret it. This is what we're seeing and this is what we're interpreting. And it's becoming, I think, more relevant to the police that the information that we give is not because we don't criticise, we question, and that's what we should be doing to understand what's going on. And then we can give them the advice that they need, that we think they need. Whether they accept it or not is entirely up to them, because again, we go back to the bigger picture. We don't have that big picture, but we are an advisory group to the whole of the Metropolitan Police Service, all 5 strands that operate within Southwark, not just neighbourhoods and partnerships, but investigation, safeguarding, headquarters. You know, they could benefit from stuff that we might be able to tell them. Again, whether they implement it or not is entirely up to them.
There's a thing, a corporate. This is a corporation, isn't it? It's over 30,000 employees to deal with London. You get a psyche, you get a mindset that evolves through time, through key personnel, obviously from commissioners, since the top person has huge influence over daily practice and structure, and the relationship with the Home Secretary or the Mayor of London. These are huge things, aren't they? And if they're going well, then that can cascade. But the thing that's fascinating in terms of corporate identity is that you two, I see you as the bearers of the corporate memory of Southwark policing over this couple of decades. Because even in my 8 years, I was just counting it up, I'm now on my 4th borough commander.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's the churn factor.
it's so frustrating. But it's policy, isn't it? It's Met policy, and I just wonder about it. Why is that enforced? There seem to be so many benefits available if they just put down a route.
You know, it's a funny comment, because I remember saying in a wider audience of police, and my comment was, you know, it would be great if people just stayed a little longer so they got to know their community better. And I said, you know, after 1 or 2 years, it really isn't enough. And this police officer was sitting in the group behind, and I could hear moaning to the next person, saying, "What do you expect us to do?" I suppose if we were going to go for a new job, or we're going to go for promotion, I suppose she wants us to stay regardless. And I turned round and I said, "No, I understand that. I understand what you might want. However, what about what we want? How about this relationship saying, we want you a bit longer because we're getting to know you."
Yeah.
In a good way, not in a bad way, but actually some people just do not want to be with community, and that's not what they joined the police to do. And that's the sad thing, really, that some people are, "Well, I've been here a year and a half, that's enough, I'm going to move on." Well, great, but you probably haven't forged a relationship with the community if you think like that. We know who they are. We know the people who are really very keen to have that relationship and learn from us like we learn from them.
Well, that was the pleasure of talking to NCCAN a couple of editions ago. Born in the borough, stayed in the borough, raised in the borough, won't leave the borough without kicking and screaming, he says.
Yes.
And he's remained a constable all these 20 years.
Yes.
It's fantastic, that. And that's what you want, isn't it?
Yeah.
Somebody who's coming literally out of your community to work with you. And then that's that Pelian principle about the police and the public.
A career police officer. A career constable.
That's the key, isn't it?
Yes.
Because the guys that get to the top have made a career of policing,
Yeah.
a very different one.
It's a career constable, and that's often said, "Oh, he's just a career officer."
There's no
And they
just
say
about
that. No, there isn't. But they say that as a comment I've heard, because that person doesn't want to go for promotion, they're comfortable doing what they do. But, the thing is it such a bad thing to do what you do and want to stay there, and you're committed to it? Because it seemed that we went through some years of, well, if they don't want to move on, we better shift them on. They better move on. And it's all about getting comfortable with the community, because some officers clearly have done some naughty things and got too comfortable with certain members in the community, and so the Met have learnt from that, we'll move them on. Well, they're not all like that. The thing is, people want to stay. People want to be part of the community.
Do you think?
Yeah. I do. I agree wholeheartedly with that. That more people like NCCAN who would be engaged with their communities would be far more beneficial to society and would give people, the community at large, greater trust in the police because they would know them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You mentioned this in one of your previous, the one with CCAN, where you said what people see of the police these days is a blue and yellow squared car going down the street with the horns screaming and the lights flashing.
Like this.
Like that. Yeah, and that's it. You don't see the bobby on the beat anymore. I mean, I remember as a child, the policeman who patrolled our area knew everybody. He knew all the children, he knew all their parents, and he'd nicked most of the parents during the course of time because they'd all grown up dipping something or other. So, there was that history.
Yes, it doesn't stop crime, does it? So
No,
we're not being delusional about this, but it retains, or it actually builds, connection and community.
Yeah.
Well, it's back to when I first got involved in the police, way of life anyway, because my home beat Bobby stayed around, and so everybody did know him. And back then, why did he ask me? What was it that he asked me to do to set up Neighbourhood Watch? To help in a way, to help the community help him. So back to that, he was around a long time.
It was
the one person. Yeah.
The level of trust that existed between the community and the police. There was an ethos, and that was, we may be on opposite sides of the fence, and we may be running away from you because you're going to nick us for something that we've done, but by the same virtue, if there was something heinous that happened, they were there to support the police. The community worked with the police, good, bad or indifferent, but they made sure that there was that degree of stability. The police have got an onerous task at the moment, and I respect them enormously for the job that they do, and for the involvement that they have in trying to maintain law and order in this country. But it's a real uphill task with less and less facilities the whole time.
Are they finding it harder with the increase of diversity in the population?
Yes, I think they are.
Because I think there are tensions between different ethnic communities, which we don't really talk about, but I think they're real. I mean, we got a flare-up in Camberwell a year or so ago in the Eritrean community, a pro-government and an anti-government factions, and it was a fair old dust-up from what I gather. So,
but who knows about it?
We know
Who
it's not
understands it?
all whites are the problem, or whites feel
No.
racist.
No.
All those tropes are a terrible distortion.
But how do the police unpick the differences in communities that you wouldn't think are going to cause a problem?
Yeah, quite.
So suddenly there it is right in your face and you've got to police it, but you haven't got time to go away and read the book and say this lot do this and this lot do that.
That's right.
Whoever they are. So you have to think on your feet, and I think so. Do I think diversity is a problem? No. I think it's enriching certain boroughs. Some outer London boroughs may not have so many different nationalities that they don't have to learn a little bit about people's culture. Here, you need to know the difference between tribes, because there are tribes in different background, like the Horn of Africa, quite a lot of tribes. So you need to know the differences if you're going to police them or you're going to understand them. And if a police officer can actually say something that's beneficial to that community, there is a respect immediately.
It's almost an idea to feed into education.
So important.
You'd school young people into the cultural differentials across their own community.
Correct.
Even one segment of one borough.
Definitely.
I remember seeing a big billboard. This was when I lived in Cincinnati. The road I used to drive down going home every evening. And it showed a little black child and a little white child hugging each other. And the slogan underneath said, "Bigots are made, not born."
Yeah.
And I thought that was so relevant, especially in a place like Cincinnati, which is very racist. It was, and it's relevant to all communities. And when you come to somewhere like Southwark, where you have such a diversity of communities, you know, we need to be able to integrate and understand and be able to participate to get the benefits of living in a diverse community like this. And to be able to help these people just across the road here to be able to integrate with them and understand, and for those people down the road that they're policing to understand why the police are doing what they're doing. It's this the melting pot is still very fresh and still needs to be considered as relevant to what we're doing. What was that song about the world's just a big onion and we're all in the melting pot? I can't remember.
Another
know
one.
the group?
Yes, I do.
Oh,
80s, yeah.
Yeah, it was, yes.
Yeah. I can hear it in my head.
Yes,
Yeah, I know it.
going round and round and round.
Yeah.
And it will do for the rest of the day now.
Yeah.
Sing it if you like, Avril.
I can't.
Oh, okay.
I can hear it in my head, but I
I
can't.
just wanted to give you the floor if you felt inspired. So it's the speed of growth of change, isn't it? That's been really testing. I don't think we're a particularly unwelcoming country. I saw something of the Green Party's proposals in their manifesto, and they're perhaps taking it to an extreme. But, you know, I think broadly people are welcomed here. And the police, I suspect, are trying as hard now as they've maybe ever tried. Have you felt any difference in the approach to diversity around us in Southwark?
I think well, they're getting better. Certainly, when you see a whole new group of new officers on their first week, and somebody from the community has gone and seen them and said hello. I've done it on one occasion where they were emergency response teams, new people coming in. That's where they're going. That's where they're going to sit. And I've talked to them and said, "How many of you live locally?" No hands. How many of you live within 5 miles of the police station? Starting to look away. How many of you actually live an hour and a half away and have to get a train every day? And the hands went up. And I said, "And what do you know about policing Brixton? What do you know about policing Walworth or Peckham?"
Yeah.
And it's like, and I'm saying, this is where we come in handy. Because guess what? We live here.
Yeah.
And we want to say hello to you on the streets. We want to wave to you, say, doing a good job.
Yeah.
But now, you've got to get used to where you are policing. You live in a little village in Hampshire and come into work, and it must be a horrendous change, straight in your face. This is what you've got. You get out the station at Brixton or Peckham Rye, and there it is in your face, and you've got this complete different culture. What a shock, isn't it?
There was a time when, if you wanted to be a police officer in London, you had to live within a certain distance of Charing Cross.
That's right.
Bromley used to be known as Truncheon Valley, because that was where all the coppers lived. Because it was, 25 minutes or 20 minutes on the train to Charing Cross, and they were there. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, as Avril's just said, they're from everywhere. They're from such a diverse area, and
because they can't afford to live up here.
Well, yes, they can't afford to live here. They've done away with section houses, so there's no accommodation for them. The governments over time, I'm getting political and I shouldn't do it, but over time have destroyed the infrastructure that was there to support the police. They've decimated it, and that's got to be rebuilt. The trust in government's management of the police has to be re-established, for the police to be able to re-establish their confidence, to be able to get the community to be able to trust them and have the confidence in them that they're doing what they are required to do.
Yes, I mean, I remember with one of your initiatives, Avril, recently, having a chance to go and talk with one of the emergency response teams one afternoon, just down the road from us here, right in the middle of Peckham. And Dave Walker and I had such a fascinating conversation. It was so revealing, and it started to open up after just about 5 minutes of chat. In a formal environment, they were about to go off on their day's shift, so they were being briefed by the sergeant. And before they left the room, we had 20-25 minutes of their time. And you saw their vulnerabilities, their inexperience, their isolation. They'd felt their senior leadership team didn't have their back. They felt poorly paid for the stresses that they were enduring. And then, occasionally, not really much at all in the mainstream, but occasionally locally, you'll learn that there was an incident and 3 officers ended up in hospital. You don't hear that side. Obviously, you hear about Wayne Couzens and his ilk, which is tragic for everybody concerned, because the repercussions are just so awful and extensive, aren't they? It takes a lot of unpicking. But that's where you come in, I think, because you can keep them solid on their side and feed back into our communities on the street.
It's interesting because we can hear things, see things, and translate things back up into a senior position that wouldn't necessarily get through the channels that they would have to follow to get there. Some years ago, I used to do quite a lot of interviewing, assessing for police promotions. Yeah. And there was sergeant to inspector promotion course going on. And this young man sitting on the other side of the desk, his whole career is in front of him, and here's somebody who's got a pin and can burst his bubble. And I said to him, why do you want to be an inspector? Because I know that sergeants can earn a lot more than inspectors earn with overtime. So it's going to be a pay drop. But of course there's the potential that he can move further. Anyway, I said, why do you want to be an inspector? He said, I look at the Metropolitan Police Service like being a big hourglass. He said, you've got a big bubble at the top and you've got a big bubble at the bottom, and there's sand at the top, and it's going to go through this very narrow little bit to get into the bottom. It filters through. And he said, I see the position of an inspector being just like that little bit of narrow glass where everything's going to filter through, because the SLT are going to decide how we're going to police the borough or wherever it is that we are. And that comes down to the inspector, and he's the one who then passes it all out to the sergeants and the constables, and the work goes out from there. So he said, really, I'm going to be the linchpin that keeps this whole thing moving. And that frightened me, because I thought, here's somebody who thinks that he's going to be the entire coordinator for the Metropolitan Police Service in whichever borough he's going to be working in. And I couldn't for the life of me rationalise in my own mind how one person could have that attitude and think that they were going to carry off the job, carry off the ability to engage with their communities and engage with their workforce and make it all successful. And I then said to myself, right, what I've got to do is make sure that I understand what the problems are down here, and I understand what the problems are up there, and I understand that the messages get across properly, and I'm not stuck in this little system where this one person who's going to decide what these people get told. But not only does he decide what they get told, he decides whatever they're saying down there, how much of that is going to be relayed back up the chain. Now, it's a very general picture of a potential problem that exists within the organisation, any organisation. I saw this myself in my own professional career, where you had to understand what the lower ranks were doing to be able to rationalise what the senior ranks were all working out about how to progress with something. But I then recognised the fact that we need to understand how everybody is thinking and what rationale they want to bring into an operation to make it a success. And Avril has made massive strides in that respect. I was never as successful as getting it off the ground. But it's certainly something that has had a substantial benefit, I believe, in this area, where the junior officers know that they can talk to us now, just as you relayed about the ERPT that you were talking to. You know, initially they're reluctant, but then they realise that we're not there to carry tales. That what we are is a conduit that they can use to get their message across that otherwise they wouldn't do, because this inspector might not be passing that up the line. That inspector's going to sanitise it.
Did he get promotion?
Not from me.
Okay, just wondered.
I had that feeling.
How he got on next year, I don't know.
Perhaps he got his feet back on the earth.
Yes, well, that was the thing. He was filling these feedback forms, and then they had the right to review them if they wanted to review them. Well, I did have a couple who came back the next year and said, you actually did me a favour by failing me, because it made me go back and look at what I needed to do.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
so there's a bright cookie who could think that through.
Yeah.
Because you obviously gave them that opportunity.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The diversity, the great range of duties and areas of service that sit in front of the police to engage in and deliver is interesting. Because when you two start to talk, the acronyms can come out, and the specific labelling for...
I tried not to, by the way.
You've done very well.
Thank you.
I haven't.
You've both been very good. You've mentioned a special. I wanted to ask you about this. What exactly is a special?
Yes.
Oh, it's a special. A special is somebody who is not a...
Regular.
Yeah, not a regular. He's not what's the word I'm looking for? They don't get a stipend from the police for doing what they do. They volunteer.
Yeah.
They're like the Independent Advisory Group, but they put a uniform on. They're not like the Independent Advisory Group. I mean, they are warranted officers in actual fact. They carry a warrant card, and they have all the powers of arrest of a regular police officer.
Right.
But they are somebody who does the role on a voluntary basis.
With benefits.
With benefits. Yeah, they get a bus pass.
Which is not, in material terms, an awful lot, is it? But for what they're doing.
And I think, I can't remember now, but they have to do a certain number of hours a month to sustain the role. But they can go through they start obviously as MSc, Metropolitan Special Constables.
Yeah.
So that they start off as a constable, but they can go sergeant, inspector, chief inspector, superintendent.
Yeah.
I don't know whether
As
they're going to
volunteers.
Yes, as volunteers.
Yeah.
I remember probably almost 20 years ago, when I think I was starting to get to know you with my local media work, discovering how many languages were spoken in the borough, and I think it was the then mayor, whose name I can't remember off the top of my head. It wasn't Althea, though, it was shortly before her. And he said, almost like a personal boast, that there were 170 languages spoken on the borough in those days, and it's probably increased. I mean, it sort of does your head in a way. When you're, if you come from a Hampshire village, like some young recruit, then get your head around that. And
Yeah.
I remember seeing up in the information that we'd get as a member of the IAG, National Independence Days in May. And alone, there's a list as long as your arm, one of which was Eritrea. And the range of them goes from Latvia and Norway in the north, across to Azerbaijan, and right over to East Timor one way, and Paraguay. And that's just for May.
What about Yorkshire?
Didn't get a mention, John.
Oh, God.
No.
Shocking.
No. Keep plugging, mate. Keep plugging. So that's just a sense of what was deemed important for the officers to know for those weeks of May, that these guys are going to have some celebrations, I suppose, or just to be up to speed with
find them
the
all
culture.
in your borough, and you probably can't. I mean, we have diversity, but they're in groups around the place. But the chances of you coming across the East Timorian anywhere would be
quite
unusual. So he's not going to wave, or she's not going to wave their flag. I don't suppose for a minute, if they're going to be part of any arrangement anywhere, they will be part of, Polynesian Islands group or something. But the chances of all these small places, although they've got a national day, are probably highly unlikely to be a validity to ERPT, emergency response teams. For example, I don't suppose they'd even be told that unless there is a group in the borough that are going to have a national day. Ghana Day, for example, does get mentioned, and they will have picnic on the Rye or whatever they do. And so because they're doing it, the police will be aware of it and step up community involvement. It's called policing. They will be watching. They will know if there's going to be any trouble because they'll have done some digging about it. But generally speaking, it is just a glorious day for people of Ghanaian background. Not an issue. But the police need to know some of it. But you wonder why, because you're thinking of the community. Well, from the community perspective, it's normal for them to have that day. But for policing, who are going to interrogate, investigate, or look at it differently because of their training, they're going to see if there is any chance it's going to cause any annoyance or criminality or anything in between with other communities. So their eyes on it are completely different from ours. We're there looking at it and supporting it because it sounds like fun. But from the police's perspective, they're looking at it in case anything goes wrong.
Yeah, that's where you go back to your community policemen, isn't it? Because they understood what the factors were within that community that made it tick. Nowadays we don't. Nowadays it's a risk assessment. Oh, they're going to have a party, right? Put a risk assessment to it.
Sure.
Of course. The whole thing is analysed to the nth degree, and that's problematic. Again, I think it instills a certain degree of mistrust.
But they don't know this. The public don't know what we're talking about. They don't know this stuff.
They don't. But there are members of the community who do, and that's I think it's maybe necessary. Yeah. But it's not explained as to why it's being done.
No, it isn't explained. That's why when you've seen an incident of any sort and you just happen to be on the road and the police are coming along and people are starting to video it and so on, and then you hear the conversations about it, and why don't they do this, and why did they do that, and why are they heavy-handed? Because people don't know what happened as a build-up. They don't know what's happening when they're watching it, and they don't know what's going to happen next. And as much as it is difficult to actually get involved in this, when people are getting upset or angry about an issue that they can see in front of them, and you as an advisor just happen to be there and to say, this is why it happens, this is what the police are doing, this is the reason for it. And that's not wrong to do. We don't get the chance very often because it doesn't happen very often. I'm walking past an incident to be able to stop and have these conversations. But it is useful that the public learn a little bit as we go along. I'm not going to hang around on street corners waiting, but I'm sure there are plenty of opportunities, certainly in Southwark, for us to come across these things.
Mobile phones have been a massive distraction from getting facts across to people. I often think about that video where there was the woman who was reporting on the problems in Rye Lane, who was reporting from PECKHAM, telling the American community how bad things were over here, and total misinformation.
It was very difficult for people to come down to Peckham because they call this place a ghetto place. A get-locked-down place that people don't want to come. Today, if you go around in Peckham, all of the shops are not even owned by black people.
Unfortunately, freedom of speech allows her to do that, but how devastating. And, you know, that gets into the wrong, well, it doesn't get into the wrong hands, it gets into the hands of people who are, for want of a expression, ignorant as to what life is all about, and, you know, then it becomes absolute gospel. Do you remember an incident some years ago where there was a guy in Brockley who was running around with a machete, and there were probably a dozen policemen there who were trying to detain him, and they got a whole load of wheelie bins, and they were all running up and down the street with wheelie bins chasing him, and they eventually cornered him and got the knife off him, and nobody was hurt.
Wow.
I was visiting my family in the States. It was Thanksgiving, and one of the people who was at the Thanksgiving dinner was actually the police chief from Cincinnati, or one of the police chiefs in Cincinnati. And he was saying, "Oh, God damn it, saw this thing about, you know, this place called Brockley in London." And he was relaying the story, this video had gone viral, relaying the story about these people with the wheelie bins. And I have to say, it did look like the Keystone Cops, the way they were chasing them around. However, they, as I say, it all finished peacefully. The guy was taken away to hospital and everything was all right. It was sectioned. But the police chief, I said to him, "Well, what would you have done?" "Oh, we'd have shot him." I said, "Yeah, exactly. You would have shot him, you'd have injured him, you'd have killed him." Mm-hmm. I said, "Here, it was resolved peacefully." That's what British policing is all about.
Yeah.
That's how we work over there.
Yeah.
Now, not the right way to do it. Do you know in the States there are 18,000 different police forces?
Right.
I say 18,000 police forces,
yes,
because that's what they are. Each one is a police force.
Okay, so that's not just divided by the number of states.
No.
That's why they could say defund the police so easily, because defunding, they can do it in their small pockets, like the borough or whatever. The funding's for the borough or whatever area, the counties and things, don't they?
Yeah.
And so it's they all have different.
Every town, every rinky-dink little settlement has its own police force. I think we're very lucky in this country that we have got a police service like we have. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but we are so lucky that we have a police service and not a police force.
It's very interesting that for those big events that, say, somebody like Tommy Robinson puts on in London, where he's going to have tens and tens and tens of thousands of people coming, and he always will say, because the internet goes mad with his promotional videos beforehand, that at the lengths he's gone to plan these events, and talking with the police is one of the big things that he always says. And he says to people, if you want to come, if you want to be aggressive, don't come. If you want to come and drink, don't come. We don't want you. This is peaceful, this is whatever. But he, who is deemed by a lot of the country to be, you know, a manifestation of evil on legs, he's multiple criminal and all that, he has found a way of working with our police and they with him, which is interesting, and it's it's reassuring, I think, that these really big events promoted by somebody who, for a lot of folk, is really inconvenient. You know, we don't really like him, but he's allowed to have his day. And on the whole, there's very little trouble at those events. So something works, but some things don't. So I just wanted to ask you quickly, this can be yes or no if you like. Have you, in your experience of policing in London, got any sense about whether or not we've got a real grooming gangs thing going on in London, as is clearly happening on a scale outside London?
Watch my lips. Yes, definitely.
Right.
It is in London the way that it is in a lot of other places. However, it doesn't suit the
media to
the
say
media,
the word.
yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
it's the word
And
grooming.
doesn't suit the government to admit to it, and it doesn't suit the Mayor of London to admit to it. So
We have the same situation that has been around the country, and the template for the same type of behaviour within that group of people is no different.
Mm.
I think the only thing is that London considers it differently. It doesn't mean politically or from the police's point of view that it's different, but the activities within what we call grooming gangs is probably a little different in London, perhaps a bit more, possibly a wider concept and slightly different, because first of all it's not a collection of people who are being seen as the perpetrators from one background. It isn't like that. So therefore we're not going to look at a group of Pakistani background people who are causing an issue on white girls. It's not like that.
Right.
So it is quite different, but it is still seen, and the public would see it as a grooming gang.
It was very interesting, wasn't it? We had that talk from Detective Sergeant Knox.
Yes.
And he pushed back on this labelling.
Yes.
But he spends his life looking at child sexual exploitation, which has a sort of fairly broad umbrella, I suppose.
Yes.
I think you
so
said
it was very confusing. He felt there wasn't any.
I don't think that's what he said.
No, I don't either. I think that he said we have a different handle on it down here, because
which is what I just said.
Yeah, as Avril's just said.
Yeah.
Because of the diversity. It's not one particular section of the community that's doing this. Whereas in other areas, smaller conurbations, that tends to be the case. It's being run by a specific group. Whereas in London, you've got such a diversity that, I mean, to go back to your language analogy, I heard a figure some time ago that there's well over 350 different languages in London. That means you've got 350 potentially different cultures that there are in London. You've got this massive, great hodgepodge of people who are all doing their own things. I think yes, I think there is a problem in London. I don't think that the problem is being publicly acknowledged. Perhaps behind the scenes there is a lot of work going on that we don't know about, and there's probably very good reason why we don't know about it, because if it was out in the public domain, it would drive it further underground than it is already.
Right.
But I do believe that the problem is here, very much so.
Another quick question. Do you think the Met has been racist?
As an institution, or as
yes, effectively. I mean,
right.
The Macpherson report, the waves and ripples ever since.
I think it's difficult to ignore it. I think it's difficult to say it is a racist organisation, but I think there is racism within it, which has risen above that parapet where we look at it as a racist organisation. So people within it have got their views, and certainly there has been evidence of issues where officers have been brought to task for racist behaviour. But is it racist behaviour, or is it part of a job where it's gone too far? And the whole mix-match of this comes across as the umbrella goes over it, and guess what? They're all racist. And I know the majority of officers that I've ever come in contact with, and if I asked that question, they would be horrified that I needed to ask it. They'd be very hurt. So I would say they're battling against that label all the time, and I feel for them, because just like anybody else, the police are the public are the police. Everybody have got their own ideas and their own opinions, but when they've got the uniform on and they have to work within the law and also to be seen collectively doing the right things, I would say you may have your own private feelings, but the chances of them being racist is few or far between, in my view.
Good.
I think it's inevitable that with a workforce of 35,000 uniformed personnel plus 15,000 support staff.
Are there that many?
I think it's about
okay.
Well, certainly 10,000.
I thought that had gone down. Anyway, doesn't
well, I don't know.
No.
I mean, but it's inevitable that you're going to have some sections of that workforce
Yeah.
that are that way inclined. But it's not the organisation overall. The organisation has been tarred with the brush because of what has happened in those little pockets. It's like it's like the situation at Charing Cross. Not the whole of the Metropolitan Detention Unit is misogynistic or racist.
Yeah.
There was that one little group that they made a television programme about.
Yeah.
I mean, what they said in an hour on that television programme could have been said in 5 minutes, and would have had exactly the same impact. It was disgusting what was going on. But that's not the Metropolitan Police Service overall. That's that one little section of it.
Yes, I think they're not very good at communicating often. When there is something going on of worth from the PR point
this
of
is
view,
a big bugbear
it's so
of
slow
mine.
to come out.
Yeah, totally. The
Good news
publicity.
doesn't sell.
No.
Bad news does. So
But also, I think they can be very slow to respond where there's a complex situation that needs some clarity.
Yes.
And they would have had
Absolutely.
a senior officer on hand somewhere who could have given immediate testimony.
Yeah.
But
Agreed.
I don't know whether they automatically have to go up the line or.
Well, they have to be careful.
I don't
They have to be careful with what they say because of potential judicial claims that may come afterwards.
Yeah.
And I can understand there being a time lag. It frustrates me that it takes them 3 days to come out and say something because by that time we've forgotten about that disaster and we've moved on to the next one. And then suddenly somebody pops up and says, "Oh, blah 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 blah." Well, yeah, get your lines right. Understand what it is that's being said, but have a department for media and communications that gets that out quickly, not drags its heels and waits for the lawyers to sign off.
They drag their heels because they want to make the right statement first time so that it isn't likely to cause any legal damage. And you're right. The problem is it isn't in the best interest of anybody locally. I've had this conversation before with the commanders here locally, and I've had the conversation saying, we don't hear about things quickly enough. We don't hear what it is you're going to put out to the community, and when you put it out, it's a sanitised version. Not happy with that. We want to know from the heart what we can do. How can the police help? Please, can we hear that they are emotionally involved in this conversation rather than sanitised? And so, the more I have the conversation, the less likely I am to win this one. But I really would like to see that change completely, and also for them to take ownership, if you like, locally of how they respond. Because I think when they respond from the heart locally, you get an understanding. Once it gets from the communications group at Central Scotland Yard, you get the sanitised version, and unfortunately that's where you lose credence with the communities.
Now, also, I wanted this conversation to be focused around Southwark, but John, you have a kind of pan-London view of IAG work, don't you? Do you want to give us a line about what you're doing as well as you're serving as a member here in Southwark? Is there anything that could be wrapped up?
We have a pan-London forum that meets every 2 months, which is the chairs of all the independent advisory groups. 32 boroughs, 32 independent advisory groups, who I should stress here that we're frontline policing independent advisory groups. The Metropolitan Police Service has corporate IAGs, as they call them, which work out of Central, work out of New Scotland Yard, and who advise on the various strands which are across the Metropolitan Police Service. So I think there's 12 or 13 corporate IAGs, and then we have the 32 borough IAGs as well.
Can you name a couple? Because I think that's quite important. You mean corporate?
The corporate IAGs, yes. There's the race IAG, there's the religion IAG. There's one which supports Trident, the firearms group.
Is there an LGBT?
LGBT.
Yeah. Obviously, just to clarify, the corporates are specifically with one
particular strand of the organisation.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what I'm interested in is the idea that somebody watching might not know about IAGs, but between the borough focus and then the pan-London theme approach, there would seem to be potential for routes into lobbying, so that if somebody was exercised or motivated by something that they thought was a benefit or needed correction, does the IAG offer a way in that could effectively lobby for a proposition?
I think it does, and that's always a function that I have seen the IAG should be taking on, to lobby for a particular activity that may be of benefit to the community and benefit to the police. I think you're right. I mean, one of the things that I was hoping would come out of this session today is an introduction to the community of independent advisory groups, because I doubt there are very many people out there who actually know that we exist and that we have a function which can be very, very useful for the communities to get their voice across to the police. The Pan-London IAG Forum is to bring all the chairs together, hopefully bring them all together, so that we can have some commonality of the way that we, across the 32 boroughs, engage with frontline policing. I think that, years ago, when I was chair of the IAG here in Southwark, I was somewhat frustrated because I had no idea what was going on in Lewisham or in Greenwich or in Bromley or any of the surrounding boroughs. They were sealed units, they worked on their own. And I was saying to the superintendent, surely there must be something where we can get together and talk about what's happening on a pan-London basis. And the superintendent at the time was talking to a colleague of hers who was saying that she had been experiencing exactly the same sentiment from the chair of their IAG, and wouldn't it be a good idea if we brought them together? So Elizabeth Virgo, who was the chair of the Westminster IAG, and myself were introduced to each other, and from there we developed this Pan-London Forum, and people looked at us sideways. It started off, there were 7 of us, and we've grown over the course of time. So now, on a meeting, there's 25 to 30 participants on each of the meetings, not necessarily everybody in the same room, but we're all either online or in the room, and there is that commonality, there's that opportunity to be able to exchange ideas if the ideas are there to be put across. They've got the opportunity to understand what other people are doing. Avril on several occasions has put across what we're doing in Southwark and how we're engaging, and other people say, oh, never thought of doing that. Yeah, we'll go away and do it. So they go away and they perhaps do it as efficiently, more efficiently, or not as efficiently as we do it here, but it's at least it's getting out there and it's working. So
sharing best practice, isn't it?
Yes, that best practice. And it gives us all an opportunity, because we meet at New Scotland Yard. It gives us the opportunity to be able to tell central engagement what the problems are that we see across the 32 boroughs and what needs to go upstairs, get relayed to the senior management.
So, quick answer: do you think facial recognition is a good thing to be rolling out across the Met?
Personally, yes.
With caveat.
Caveat for you being?
I think we need a much bigger conversation about it. There's certain things it works for.
It does identify wanted people,
it can,
doesn't it?
Exactly. And it's this human rights element of it and that lobby that we need to hear more about and from, in order for me to feel comfortable that it's done for the right reasons.
Yes, they say they hold the data for only 5 hours or 3 days or whatever the term is, and then it's automatically deleted.
It's immediate.
It's really second.
It's
literally, it's selective. You can select whether you're going to have your picture taken by that camera or not, because there's a big sign up there that says that live facial recognition is operating this area. It's on the side of the van that they're working from.
Yeah.
So if you see it and you're a bad boy or bad girl and you don't want to get caught, go and walk on the other side of the street or walk around the cordon or whatever it is.
And wait for the police to come and get you there.
You don't.
Because that's what they'll do.
You don't have to go in front of the camera and get recognised. If you're not on their wanted list, it sees you and then it's gone. It's off the screen. It's off the memory.
However, my caveat is, how do I know?
But that's a big
And
problem.
that's the one for me.
That's trust and confidence, isn't
And
it?
I have made that point when I went and saw them when they first set it up in Borough High Street. And I said, yeah, all looks wonderful. And I could see all the police on different corners, watching the people who are coming, seeing it, turning back and going, having a chat with them. I haven't got a problem with that. I have a problem, though, about how long you're going to store this for. And I'd like to know for sure. How do I know it's definitely wiped off. We can't keep it. So you load up what it is you're looking for. Things like people who are wanted on warrant and haven't been to a police station. They want maybe sexual offences, and they are looking at people who they are wanting for that. They're not doing it for the little robber down the street. They're only doing it for certain elements of criminality. However, I don't mind what they're doing it for.
We don't know anyway.
No, we don't. But I want to know what they do with it. After, when I've seen it, I've been in the van and I've watched them, and they say, this wipes off. Seconds later, that person's walked through, not wanted, doesn't come up on their computer. That's the end of it. And I'm saying, but you can now keep it. How long you keep it for? 30 days. So you keep it, it's wiped off, but it's 30. So I'm not 100% happy until I know more.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to trust an organisation whose remit is as complex and profound as theirs has to be. If they're fighting meaningful crime, then they need all the data they can store, presumably. And a lot of it is going to be held, despite what
I have considerable faith in what they say is what happens. Only by virtue of the fact that when this was all kicking off and they were talking about the protocols that were required to make it work, and going back to when I said about being involved in promotions assessments, there were people that I worked with there who were involved in facial recognition planning, programming, getting it out there, and they talked about it and they said how it was going to work, and I've got the faith that what they say is actually what happens with it.
Well, you're a very nice man, John, is all I can say.
I know I am. That's why I'm so loved by everybody.
Look, you two have done a fantastic job serving Southwark and the police through the IAG as a unit. Just to conclude, what would each of you have as a specific aim to achieve over the next period of time, whatever you care to say, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, that would be of broad benefit to community and the police in their work? What might the IAG, Avril, for you, look to accomplish?
I think, I'd like to grow the IAG personnel a little bit. I have been saying this for a while and finding people, like-minded people, who are interested in not bashing the police over the head and not pointing fingers at them, but to come and give the benefit of their knowledge to the group where the police can listen to how they see it in the community. And I think we're getting there with the current members. I'd like to see a few more members that come in from different backgrounds, different areas, to be able to add value to that. I think we're doing okay. I want to see it better, and I want to see more of it, and I want to see that the police that actually do come to our meetings, whatever level they are, whatever persuasion they come from, and whatever their background is, that can sit, listen, and take something away from us, not just give it to us, because they come to give us their own experiences and their own specialism. Haven't a problem with that. We can take that back to the community, because that's why we invite them. But at the same time, I'd like them to go away and mark us out of 10 and say, do you know, that was really useful. Now I know how some people in the community feel and how they work. So I think if we keep going, slowly, doing it this way, I think we'll get to a status quo that I will be very happy with. Good enough?
Grow the IAG.
Quite.
John?
A similar vein, but I'd like to see a younger engagement with the independent advisory group.
Getting people who are building their career or raising a family to find time to attend meetings.
I understand.
Been trying
I understand.
It's so difficult.
But I would like to see a younger element coming in. I'm not talking about people who are late teens, early 20s. I'm talking about people
Just younger.
People who have been, people who are in their mid-30s, their 40s.
Yeah.
They've got life experience to bring to the table.
Yeah.
They've got an ability to be able to understand things perhaps streetwise that we don't, because we're that bit older. We're not as up to date perhaps as we could be. I consider myself to be relatively lucky because I've got two grandsons who talk to me quite a lot about what they're doing, how they're doing it with their friends, where they're going, how life is developing for them, and what's good, bad or indifferent. So I feel that I have an understanding, but I don't have that hands-on experience that I think overall would be beneficial to us. Don't get rid of the oldies, don't get rid of the crinkly skins. You need them because we've got a lot to bring to the table, a lot of experience to put there in front of people. Very essential.
Have you been out on the street trying to find your people in their 30s and 40s who have got kids and lifestyles and mortgages? Have you tried?
I know.
I have.
It's an uphill
I
struggle.
have, and it is really difficult to break into that unless people are interested in legalities or community and the police together. And there's very few. You can't have a whole collection of them in one room and find that there's even one who is interested in coming forward. And it's, that's where my publicity comes in. I'm doing this a lot.
It sounds very dull. It's quite easy to sell it in a way that it just sounds like a complete turn-off. Whereas in fact, if you can take a slightly longer-term view, which when one is a little bit older is easier, that slightly longer-term view of the point of an engagement sells the fascinating possibilities of this entity, this IAG.
Yeah.
Avril+John, I knew it was going to be enjoyable. Thank you so much.
Good, I'm glad it is. Thank you.
I'm glad it's not controversial, though.
So, Southwark means the world to me.